thanking everyone for joining us here today for the R&I community rollout of the Résumé for Research Innovation like CV, narrative CV gathering and resources launch, which I have been told is quite a lengthy title for any event, but no acronym seemed to work quite very well. So I'm Hilary Marshall. I'm a Senior Strategy and Policy Advisor for UK Research Innovation. I'm joined here by Tom Rowe, who's a Policy Advisor for Universities UK. I've been involved in this programme since the very beginning, and that's almost 2 years ago now. But this is actually the first time we've ever had the opportunity to gather in person, so it's quite a big moment for this programme. I just want to touch on some of the highlights we've had in those last 2 years. So we started as 7 funders wanting to look at aligning approaches for narrative CVs, and now we're over 50 organisations. So we are 2 communities of good practice, made up of a mix of funders, higher education institutions, learner societies and professional bodies. And I'm delighted to say that in the room today and joining us virtually, we have members from the UK, Ireland, Switzerland, Luxembourg, Northern Ireland, and actually we go as far from Scotland to New Zealand as a community of good practices. In that time, we've developed over 20 resources and more coming. We have had 7 secretariat changes. Hilary Noon reminded me that was because I had a baby, so part of that is 1 baby. And then we've also actually engaged over 1,000 people globally in R4RI-like narrative CVs. So I just want to thank members of those communities who joined us here today, and also other people who've been part of the programme supporting its work. We come today to highlight the power of collaboration, teamwork, co-creation in culture change. But before we get underway, I need to hand over to Tom for a bit of housekeeping.
Thank you, Hilary. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm just going to quickly run through some housekeeping. So, firstly, toilets. They're 1 floor down, and they can be accessed through the back door over there. And there are lifts or stairs to access them. We're not anticipating a fire alarm, but if we do hear one, then the nearest exits are either down the side of the stage, out the door that we came through, or you can go through the back 2 doors there. And then we would gather outside in Tavistock Park, just across the road. So I suppose if it does happen, then at least the weather's nice. But, we are having our photos taken later, so if you don't want your photos taken, then please either inform Hilary Marshall or our photographer Adam at the back there. And yeah, that'd be brilliant. The event is being recorded, and a recording of the welcome, keynote and closing summary will be published online for those unable to attend today. And the presentation slides will also be circulated following the event. And finally, just to say that this is a hybrid event, so just to say thank you to those who are joining us virtually as well. So that's it for the housekeeping, and I'm now just going to quickly run through the schedule for this afternoon. So hopefully you've had a chance to already to enjoy some of the tea and coffee outside. I'm going to pass over shortly to my colleagues Dan Wake and Hilary Noon to provide a welcome from the chairs. And then at 1:25 we will be have the keynote and senior reflections from Stephen Hill, and thank you, Stephen, for joining. At 1:40 we will get our photos taken before a quick comfort break at 10 to 2. And then at 2 o'clock we will all meet back here for the interactive session where we reflect and come up with suggestions on the following 3 themes. So that is initiation and momentum, progression, and where are we now / where next. Then at 3 o'clock we have the opportunity for networking and refreshments before everyone can meet back here at 10 to 4 for summary and closing remarks, and then we will finish at 4.
Thank you, Tom. So I just want to introduce our chairs from the groups today. So we've got Hilary Noon. Hilary Noon is a Research Innovation Culture Lead at UK Research Innovation, and she has been chairing the Joint Funders Group. And we've got Daniel Wake, who is a Policy Manager at Universities UK, and he's been chairing the Alternative Uses Group. So over to them both.
Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for joining us all today. So I'm Dan Wake, Policy Manager at Universities UK. I'm really fortunate to be able to work on research culture across all sorts of different initiatives from concordats and initiatives to the narrative CV as well. So I've been able to see the community really come together to really talk about really important issues, encourage diversity, inclusiveness, and ultimately all of this improves the quality of research, which is really important to recognise. Before I sort of go into the work we've been doing, I'd really like to give a huge thanks to UKRI and to Hilary and Hilary and Tripti, who's here today as well, for all their brilliant work and I guess getting us all here today, sort of, doing all the driving work behind all these great resources that we're launching today. So I'm really pleased to see all this happen and the fruits of our efforts come through. So I did want to say thank you very much to all of you for that. But I thought we'd set the scene by saying a little bit about why we're all here today. So we're supporting the widespread adoption of the narrative CVs, and they kind of help people evidence a wider array of contributions that will help us make a more informed prospective assessments on project, the person, the infrastructure proposed from all of this. So this is beyond a list of publications and grants that have usually been seen in the more traditional academic CVs. So we want to see the whole person, not just what's visible above this waterline here. But adopting the narrative CV has other benefits as well, which can be seen on the right-hand side. The first is around reducing bureaucracy, so making sure that we're replacing all the current varied formats and guidance with a more consistent approach when people apply for review or an organisation to an organisation. We're very much a global research and innovation system here. The second is around creating a more inclusive process, so kind of allowing better description of all the varied career pathways that exist. It reduces kind of that focus on continued productivity and kind of enables that broader range of people and ideas and outputs to be highlighted from all of this as well. Creating the right incentives too, kind of building on for that, having a healthy, functioning research and innovation ecosystem requires having a breadth of contributions. So our incentive system really needs to value a much wider range of contributions and outcomes as being excellent. Teamwork and collegiality as well, recognising the skills and the value of all that collaboration and developing others and the varied roles which make research and innovation possible. Reducing barriers as well across different disciplines and sectors, so being able to describe all the breadth of outputs and put that in context to make sure we're sort of aiding reviewers who may be unfamiliar with the discipline or sector to understand the significance and the impact. And then also around responsible assessment as well, so kind of reducing that focus on lists and quantity of outputs, having a greater focus on the quality of outputs, so kind of a whole picture approach to the applicant's contributions and experience. And this is also about changing how people experience actually working in research and innovation as well. There's a word cloud at the bottom here from Wellcome Trust report, which kind of signposts kind of some of the different terms and words that come through when we're talking about research culture and recognition. Have a bit of a timeline here, a few animations. Hopefully I'll be doing these properly. First thing to say is this work isn't new. It's not a recently developed thing. It comes from the community. It's been developed over a number of years. There was a 2014 report by Nuffield Council for Bioethics, and they highlighted the issue of narrow definitions of success and a highly competitive system. And this was then built on by the Royal Society, who through kind of that extensive engagement with the research and innovation community co-created the Résumé for researchers. So a new narrative CV that captured the need for more contributions to be visible and valued. Then in 2021, the UK government in its R&D people and culture strategy committed to support the widespread adoption of the narrative CV based on the Résumé for research. So it outlined an ambition to make sure we reward progress and that recognition systems drive that excellence, promote academic freedom, align with our current culture vision for having diverse and inclusive environments. We also noticed that these incentives must recognise all the contributions required for excellent research and show that who and what is valued is changing in our system. To reassure the research innovation community We want to take an aligned approach wherever possible in this commitment, as well as support each other throughout this ambition. So the Joint Funders Group was formed, and many of you are here today from that. And it wasn't long after, It wasn't long after all of this that the Résumé for Research and Innovation was created as well, so having a more inclusive and evolved version, so suitable for everyone that worked in research and innovation. And it was also around this time that the programme evolved to create the Alternative Uses Group, which Universities UK and myself are involved in. So that looks at all the areas in terms of the use of the CV beyond funding decisions, so recruitment, promotion, that kind of thing. So together, those two groups would take a bit of a comprehensive and cohesive approach to shifting what's visible and valued in research and innovation. I realise there are a range of strategies and reviews that have been developed over the last few years, and I think we're all getting to grips with those and thinking about how we can best support those and drive through progress. I won't speak to all of these now, but I think there's some clear themes that have been coming through for all of these, which is helpful to see and helps reassure us in terms of the work that we're doing here, is how important it is to making sure we have a really strong, inclusive, effective R&D system. So a lot of it is making sure we remain attractive to talent, making sure there's permeability in the landscape, making sure that we're thinking about all the different career choices that people make and respect those, making sure we're recognising all the wider contributions that people make, and also thinking about ways that we can reduce bureaucracy in the most effective way as well. And hopefully this kind of wider spread adoption can help support that process as well. The People and Culture Strategy did estimate that between 2021 and 2030, the workforce is going to need to grow by 150,000. In order to attract and retain this talent, the right culture is essential for that. We need to make sure we're providing enticing, stable R&D careers for the widest possible range of potential researchers, technicians, other people in the system. So like any workforce, in the R&D workforce, people come from a range of backgrounds and have a varied experience of their work and workplace. But VITA's Culture, Employment and Development and Academic Research survey said that 18% of research staff have experience working in other sectors, and I think we really need to kind of drive those numbers up. Here's a very quick overview of us trying to summarise all the work that's been going on in this space. It's evolved from the Joint Funders Group 2 years ago to the work we've been doing in the Alternative Uses Group and beyond. I think the important thing to recognise here is it's very much a systems approach, so we're working as one sector to make a change here, because not everyone applies to or reviews for one organisation or funder or country. We're very much a global research and innovation system. This is a shared endeavour. Research collaboration improves the quality of research, as I said. So really important that we drive and recognise those wider contributions and career progress, making sure we're more recognised and valued in the landscape. And that's why I hope these resources that we've all been producing together will collectively support, and I'm very confident that they will do so. I'm now going to hand over to Hilary, who's going to talk through where all our hard work has got us to and the resources that have been developed and launched today. So over to you, Hilary.
Right. Okay, thank you very much, Dan. So essentially, where at the centre of all of this is the Résumé Resources Library, which you'll have heard us all going on and on about, but essentially this has got about 20 resources co-created and counting, which have been really prioritised by all of you in terms of what would help people to adopt, engage, and come on the journey around the narrative CVs, and as representatives of the R&I community, what would help the R&I community to actually uptake on this. Now, importantly, and this was one of our red lines, is that these were all freely and available and accessible to everybody in the R&I system, so that it wasn't behind any paywalls. It could be easily translated by Google Translate. And so even if, say, you were an independent researcher, so not currently connected to an institution or had dedicated teams that would help you, you're not left behind. So it's almost like a levelling up in terms of support and knowledge, or as I like to say, democratizing knowledge in the space. The other thing about a lot of the Résumé resources library, and don't be ashamed, your names are on there, so that we're making sure the credit is duly given to all those who supported it all the way through the journey, including all of the secretariat and the changes that we've had over the time, so that everybody's contribution is visible and valued, because we have to walk the walk and not just talk the talk. So, in terms of this programme, one of the other really important things of what we've done is actually really role model responsible policy intervention by taking a research approach. So we haven't just gone and put something out that we've created in a vacuum. We've actually devised, we've looked at our blind spots, which a lot of our how-to guide is going to cover as well. But we're also evaluating what we do through the shared evaluation framework, which is, I'm sure, all familiar to you, but the structure in terms of informing the next iteration of resources. And then sharing this in an open way with the community through the evidence platform, so we build a feedback loop and the trust in terms of what we're doing. So this also helps us monitor for any unintended consequences and make changes as necessary. And it also helps us see if the narrative CVs are doing what we intended in terms of changing who gets funded or hired and so on. But all of this is, well, we were trying to make sure this was a reflective event, and she wasn't able to be with us today. Not that she's dead or anything, she's just like, I realize when I've said that, that could be misinterpreted. But sometimes someone says something that actually sticks with you and you realize the impact of that. And you'll be familiar with Frances Downing, who was the previous head of Research and Innovation Culture, and she said it wasn't just what we've been doing, it's how we've been doing it. And I thought that was something we really needed to take back today in terms of what we've achieved, what we've demonstrated is possible, and why actually a lot of national and international groups are interested in the work that we've actually demonstrated here. So the how-to guide that we've created covers a lot of the key features that have made this group successful and effective, and the relationships that have been built. But there's also some other things. The safe space, you know, we really protected that and made sure that we were able to have the honest conversations, so really supporting each other on the journeys. In terms of, say, in terms of things like, say, the Résumé Resources Library, but also the event that we had last year with hundreds of people all over the world, so that we were helping each other. We also took the view of no seat warmers, and I remember I had to explain that to a lot of people, which is basically, this wasn't a group where you would just have a seat at the table because of your title or position. You were going to be active and you were going to be doing things. So that also no hierarchy in the group. Whatever insights anyone had, they were there and they were given. That helped us to have really honest and sometimes difficult conversations. That's really helped us change the hearts and minds of people who've maybe sat on the fence around these narrative CVs, but also about what would really help someone engage and develop the narrative CV in their organisation, for it to be actually useful to them. And one example that comes to mind is the event that we had in March last year, where we had a lot of the chief executives, a number of funders who were talking about the difficulties and having a debate around it. But also the other thing is about working with really diverse stakeholders and experts. So we took numbers of volunteers from each group with our digital design and data team and across the innovation community to sprint and develop an evidence platform that would basically house the data that we would be gathering together. So about really pulling together all of the experts in different areas. In terms of, I think I'm handing over to you now, yes? I will pass that on, sorry.
Thank you. Final slide from me. So at last week's Research Culture and Practice Forum, some of you might have been able to attend that. I mentioned that research culture can be complex, but can we make things a bit easier for ourselves? Ultimately, as has been mentioned, people are at the heart of this. Maybe there's some work we can do to make things a little bit complex and more aligned where we can, and help people in this space. So part of that is making sure that our work aligns with other activity in this space, from global initiatives that are going on responsible research assessment, the likes of Kawara and Dora, to national, community-specific and organisational strategies as well. In our recently published Concordats and Agreements review, which we did with HEIs and Welcome, it also recommended better alignment with other instruments within the research ecosystem, the likes of the Research Excellence Framework and the Future Research Assessment Programme, which initial decisions have just been published for. I think the latest ref is hopefully aiming to achieve that broader recognition as well, and we can think about how we can support that. This is all about taking a collaborative approach, complementing each other's efforts to enable kind of more cohesive but also accelerated culture change. So really changing what and who is visible and can be valued in this system so that we can best attract, identify and retain the best people and ideas that need support to flourish, but can also help us address the world's most pressing challenges in advanced research and innovation. So that integration is really important. It's something that we're looking at, we'll continue to look at. It goes back to that bureaucracy perspective. We want everything to be joined up. We want to have consistency. So there's still a way to go, but hopefully the kind of the resources that we've developed will help us support that. Back over to you.
Yeah, I really should keep a track of where I am. So this is one of the last things on our timeline, which is really like looking at the refreshed Résumé resources library that we have put through, the event from March, which was last year, and also just a lovely snapshot there, and some might recognize yourselves, from the evidence platform sprint with our DDAC colleagues, which was, I have to say, probably the most amazing experience ever, but incredibly exhausting. Now, today, we are actually going to be launching the refreshed Résumé resources library with fancy new logos, and I am pleased to say it is now technically live. Woo! Well done, everyone. All of this is massive hard work from everyone here and online who aren't able to join us in person, so it's a really huge community achievement. This includes the how-to guide, the shared evaluation, all the guidance on assessment criteria, reviewers for applicants. It's all there, and there is more and more coming. The shared evaluation framework will really, really help us as a minimum common product across the sector, and also in terms of the what's more to come in there is around training, which is a part of our democratizing knowledge so that no one is left behind in this. Also in terms of the peer-to-peer platform, which we've had mentioned, which is going to help people in compiling their narrative CVs, how we're going to share the evidence, and also potential for a Quora working group in future. So hopefully that link is live. I don't know if this is connected to the internet, but we will try. So we have the best practice guide to help others recreate this model and address similar intractable challenges in culture change or other areas, and the shared evaluation framework, which can be used by anyone, anywhere, to be able to be part of this sector-wide change. And before I go, and I hand over to Stephen, I'd just like to say a massive thank you to Universities UK for coming on this journey with us, Tom and Dan, and to HEIs for being so supportive and helping this community come together. And also to all of the Secretariat support, some of you are here today in person, and some of you are online. And also a huge thank you to you all for coming on this journey. We've still got a bit more to go, but I think what relationships and ambitions and vision we've created together, I think will really help us get through this and really make the change that we've all really want to see happen in the R&I system, with shifting who and what is visible and valued. So thank you very much. Over to you, Stephen.
Thanks very much, Hilary, and thanks for the invite and the opportunity to be here today. I feel a bit like I'm gate crashing a party that's been going on for several hours, well, 2 years, and I've come in right at the end just to say a few words, but thank you for giving me that opportunity. And it's great that so many people are able to be here in person, but also that we have the full community online. And it's really kind of fantastic to see, through the presentations that you've just seen about the progress that's been made in this work over the last 2 years. And let's not forget 2 years where it's been a difficult environment to do collaborative work. And so it's a real achievement to have progressed this work in the context of, global pandemics and not being able to meet face to face. And it's great to see the resources library, the refreshed version, being published, and those resources being available to everyone who wants to use them. I have a few words to say about the context of this work, and I think it picks up on some of the themes that Hilary and Dan have already mentioned. This is part of a much wider, broader and deeper consideration about research culture and getting research culture right. And it's not, in some ways this isn't a new thing. We've known for certainly the length of time I've been working in research policy, that despite the fact that we have very successful research systems globally, this is not just a UK observation, we have fantastic research across the world, but that's often at the expense of unpleasant and toxic cultures. And the benefits that we get from research at the moment, which are huge, are probably not as great as they could be if we had better cultures that were more inclusive and more welcoming to a wider range of talented people. We have a lot of missing people in the research and innovation system, and those missing people are talented and have contributions to make. One of the strong drivers, I think, to meet that government target in terms of expanding the research workforce is to really make the space for those missing people in the system. And the thing that I think has become really brought to the fore in the last few years has been the central role of research evaluation in that in that less than positive culture. And that's not to say that research evaluation in the past has necessarily measured the wrong things, but it hasn't measured some really important things. And the direction we're moving in now is to really think about the processes of evaluation, what's included and what's not included, and to make sure that we're not only measuring the outcomes of research, which is a very important part of any research evaluation, but we're also measuring the process and the conditions under which that research is delivered. And it's, I'm saying, I'm going back to the Francis Downey quote that Hilary put up on the slide. It's about the how as much as the what, and that's the kind of shift that we're seeing in research assessment. Research assessment is a complex, multifaceted, systemic issue. So it's not just, there is no quick fix in solving these problems. And that's because research assessment operates at a number of different levels within the research and innovation system. The resume for researchers is narrative CVs are at one point in the system where research gets evaluated at the individual level in terms of applying for funding, in terms of promotion or hiring and so on. But we also have to be cognizant of the other layers of evaluation that are constantly going on within the system. We have national research evaluation systems in some countries. Those have a profound effect on cultures within the systems that they apply to. We have the research and academic publishing system, which is itself a tool of evaluation. It's a sifting mechanism that determines whose research gets heard and seen in the wider system. And that's an equally important part of research culture. So in thinking about how you tackle research culture, it's really important that we tackle all of those levels of research evaluation. And I think the program we've been developing at HEIs around research culture is really aimed at looking at all of those levels. And I know other funders around the world are also doing that. And I know in universities where people are really thinking about how to improve their cultures, again, this multifaceted, systemic approach is really important. You know, I couldn't miss the opportunity of just mentioning the REF and the proposals that we published last week in this context. And you know, it's already been mentioned by the previous speakers as well, in that what we're trying to do there is develop the REF into a more rounded assessment in terms of a stronger focus on people and culture elements, and a reduced emphasis on the production of outputs as being an important counterbalance to that change as well. What is probably more of a surprise, or maybe it won't be a surprise, but there's actually quite a lot of inspiration in the next REF guidelines that actually has been drawn from your work on the Résumé for Researchers and Innovation and narrative CVs more broadly. It's not normally the sort of thing that gets revealed, but in the options work that we did over the last few months, we were scenario planning different views of what the next REF would look like, and one of them was called a narrative CV for universities, and was essentially testing out the idea of what would a narrative, completely narrative-based element for university-based research assessment look like, and it was based very much around the narrative CV. Now, those of you who've pored over the document we published last week will not see a narrative CV for universities in that document, but you will see features of that scenario that we've mapped out. More rounded evidence around research outputs, for example. What are the research contributions beyond the research outputs that a unit or a university is making? This was directly taken from the narrative CV work that you've all been involved in. So I think you've heard a bit about the importance and the impact of the work in its own sphere today already, but I think it's also very influential in changing the way that people are thinking about research assessment. So I think that's another one to add to your list of impacts. Obviously, the work is very, I don't really feel I need to say much more about the narrative CV work itself, given the introductions that you've had. But I think it has a huge potential to transform the way in which researchers are evaluated. And it's really exciting to see it being taken up not just by funders in their work, but also by universities in the promotion, tenure and hiring practices within those institutions. And there's I know there's a lot of people in this room who are pushing that forward in their own institutions, and I think it's really important work, not least because we want to make this as low burdensome as possible for researchers. And so if we can all agree that narrative CVs are the way to go and have common formats and questions within them, then that makes it easier for researchers. They can develop their narrative CV for one purpose and then in a relatively simple way reuse it for something else. And of course, that's one of the great attractions of the classical CV, that it can be reused in that sort of way. So I think it's really important that we have this collective working. So the final thing I just wanted to say is really to dwell for a moment on the importance of collaboration in this space. Firstly, I think collaboration is really important because if we're trying to bring about this change in culture in the research system, I think those of us who work with the research system as enablers of that system need to model the sorts of behaviors that we want to see within the research and innovation system itself. And I think the work that has been done through the Joint Funders Group and the Alternative Users Group is a really powerful role model for how collaborative work can yield real benefits. And I think we should trumpet that as much as the content of what's been produced. Perhaps we should be worrying about the how of the R4RI work as much as the what. But why is collaboration so important in this space? Well, I think some of these things have already been said, but research and innovation is a global system where it will be much more effective if we have consistent standards and approaches across different countries, and we don't end up with kind of siloed approaches that make it harder for researchers to move around between countries. So that's one reason why collaboration is so important. Of course, collaboration is important in this space because it brings lots of innovation and ideas into it itself. The more people you have, the more good ideas you'll have, and the better the ultimate product will be. And it also allows us to create momentum, and I think that's very evident in this particular area, where the fact that there is now a global movement around the adoption of narrative CVs is down to collaborative work. So I think I'm going to wrap up just by thanking you all for the work you've done on this. I think it's making an enormous contribution to our kind of work globally to improve research cultures. I think it's fantastic that it's been done in such a co-created and collaborative way. Thank you all for your contributions, and happy to take us probably 5 minutes if anyone has any questions, but if not, we can extend the break. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you. So next we're going to move on to our reflections and suggestions part of the agenda. So I want us to reflect on how this programme has led to the widespread adoption of Résumé for research and innovation like narrative CVs, and also to capture your suggestions. So those in the room will see that there's a number of easels at the back of the room. Theme 1, Theme 2 and Theme 3. These boards reflect the questions that were circulated with the agenda, but would really appreciate you making notes on the post-it notes and sticking them to the boards. I will be sharing the results from this in a report, so if you'd rather your suggestion or reflection not be shared, just please highlight in your note. And those joining us virtually, you will shortly be put into smaller breakout rooms, and a Mentimeter link will be circulated to you where you can enter your reflections and your suggestions. So that's it from me. Please make your way in the room to the back of the room where the easels are, and those virtually, enjoy the breakout rooms. We'll gather together again in 1 hour. Let me check. Yeah, at 3 o'clock. So see you very shortly.
These already, so I'm actually thinking about actually implementing them. So we'd really like to keep that momentum going, really hear about how that's all going within your organisations. In terms of sort of next steps, really, there's a few things that have come through, I think. One is around making sure we're building confidence and experience, so being able to kind of talk about these issues, but I think it's kind of felt that it takes sort of one organisation to take the first step and then we kind of follow. I think we kind of need to try and make sure we can kind of collectively build our confidence to engage in this together. There's quite a bit in there around evidence gathering as well, so making sure we're continuing to evaluate how this is all working in practice and getting feedback there too. Quite a bit for us to consider on reviewer training as well, have come through quite a lot. But also more broadly thinking about the ways we can disseminate the materials that we've shared today as well, and the learning that we've gathered through this journey. So yeah, lots for us to reflect on and think about, but I'll hand over to Hilary in case you had any more thoughts.
Smashing. Thank you very much. And also, I didn't diligently read them all, so just because I got distracted by the scones. Sorry for the people online. We'll try and send you some virtually. Really, what I think was quite good to pick up on was the fact that I think people thought that someone had more knowledge than someone else at the very start of this process, and thought that, I don't know, maybe UKRI could teach them. Actually, we were all like at the same starting line, and we were all trying to figure out how to do this. So, you know, this is really about the co-creation and the co-learning. So that's an excellent reflection there. Also about the influence that this programme has had. You know, you've heard from Stephen Hill earlier about, you know, how this has been mentioned in the language used in the Ref 2028, but also we've seen it referenced in other places like Coara and other types of initiatives. So it is actually getting out there, which is fantastic. And that we, you know, need to do more about improving the communications on this. Our comms colleague said to us that this was the best kept secret they'd ever heard of. And I had to explain it was because we were all so busy, head down, working, that we'd actually forgot to tell or didn't have time to tell people as much as we should. So we're making up for that now. And also to remember that this was originally started as a pilot for the Good Practice Exchange, which was one of the UK Government's People and Culture Strategy commitments. And I think we've really tested and demonstrated and role modeled the ways that it can be done in sharing and not duplicating, really authentically collaborating and not competing, so that we're really, really walking the walk and not just talking the talk. And I think the other thing to bear in mind as well is that from some of the things that people have talked about next steps, there's obviously the ways this can expand in the evidence and, you know, team and institution narrative CVs, as we've heard earlier, but also, you know, might be other intractable challenges that we move on to potentially, like precarity, which a lot of people have mentioned, or, you know, as someone said, was it start small but think big? We might as well just go for world peace and, you know, hunger. But really, I think what I really want to say is like a massive thank you to everyone who's contributed to this. Hopefully you'll help us promote this, be ambassadors for this thing that we have all co-created, and you know, keep with us on the journey while we, you know, get the peer-to-peer platform out, the evidence, the training, and also just to say a last thank you so much to all of you for joining us today, virtually, in person. Thank you to Hilary Marshall for organising all of this so well, to our creative services team in UKRI who have done all of this amazing stuff for us, and to the web team who have actually just pulled this out of the bag, helping us get this published. So they're really chuffed that they got a round of applause earlier. And also to our DDAT colleagues in helping us build a prototype for the evidence platform to really help us see the next phases. And just a thank you to you all, and to Dan and everybody, and also our AV team and our photographers and our events team for doing those amazing easels, which I had no idea was happening, which is super cool. And we will be sharing all this stuff from that and all the insights as well. And we've also had a request to share the details of all the people who've attended today, if everyone's okay with that. I see nods, super. Anything else I've forgotten? No? Then I will just say, go for it, fill your pockets, whatever food is left, because it's all paid for, you know me, and thank you so much for taking the time out and joining us today. Thank you very much.